All right, everyone, welcome in another episode of GC Live, Monday morning episode as we do all football season. Going ahead and getting our afternoon takes in on Monday morning. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. That one would be my fault. But all set up now here, and we're going to dive into the game here in a second. But first, let me tell you about our guy, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number is 71597, as we always tell you. And as we also always tell you, if you're in the market for a new home or you just maybe want to be a homeowner one day and are kind of starting that planning process and are wondering exactly what that might look like for you, what Clint will do, he'll sit down with you. He'll get a great idea of kind of where you are in life, what your assets are, how much money you have saved, and kind of help you come up with a plan. That's what he did for me originally when I was a first-time home buyer. He can do the same for you as well. ClintHammond.com for more information, or just give him a call, shoot him a text, 803-422-6797.
So also tell you about our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet. That's ferrychevrolet.com, F-A-I-R-E-Y. That's where you can find them, ferrychevrolet.com. Or, of course, you can give them a call, 803-937-4531. They've been around, guys, since 1926. They started right in the Palmetto State in St. Matthews and now conveniently located right there in Orangeburg. So if you're in the area, if you're in Columbia, if you're in Charleston, it's still going to be a convenient drive for you and well worth the trip over there because they operate with honesty, integrity, and a handshake. They're local, trustworthy, and they're always transparent. Family-owned business led by a fourth-generation dealer in Joseph Ferry. Family-owned business over at Ferry Chevrolet has been serving the community since 1926. Again, go check them out. ferrychevrolet.com. You can check out their inventory and get in touch. If you're looking for a new or used Chevy vehicle, you're a South Carolina fan, go support a business who supports us. Go support the folks over at Ferry Chevrolet. Get yourself a great new or used vehicle, ferrychevrolet.com.
All right, yeah, appreciate those two great sponsors. We'll tell you about a couple more later on. Chris, let's dive into the game, man. If everybody just wants to tune this show out or not listen today, I completely understand. Maybe you're just ready to move on to other things because, it was rough, man. South Carolina losing to Missouri 29-20. And you and I have exchanged some text over the last, 48 hours or so, you would say, and talked to a lot of other people as well. And, man, the common theme here, I think, is much like people felt like probably after watching the game on Saturday night. Lots of frustration that I think it was almost more frustrating that this game was winnable in the end for a lot of people. Like that may be the most frustrating part for folks is you look at it and you say just too sloppy, man. Like that's kind of how you can sum it up. Like South Carolina is not playing clean football, and that can mean a lot of different things, but for whatever reason it may be, right now the attention to detail is just not where it needs to be. And I think when you look at the penalties in this game, and we, frankly, Chris, we had this discussion the first, handful of games last year. Remember when penalties, obviously not just because the LSU game, there are a lot of reasons we're talking about penalties for that one, but overall, it was just, man, there's too many penalties. And I remember us talking about self-inflicted issues quite a bit. And so here we sit again. To me, like, I don't want to say you can sum it up in one thing, but if I had to sum it up in one thing, I would just say not clean enough. And Beamer alluded to this yesterday. This was not coach speak. He's actually, I think, 100% right. Having some penalties really is not the end of the world. Like, you are going to have penalties within the course of a game if you are playing hard, if you're playing tight defense. It's kind of that thing where I would not want a quarterback that just never throws an interception, like absolutely never throws a pick. That means you're just being way too safe, right? Like you're not trying to put the ball in some tight windows. If my DBs just literally never had a PI or never had a hold, or even my offensive lineman from time to time, man. There may even be a good time where you say, hey, just yank that guy down and don't let him hit your quarterback. But I think it's the number of penalties for one. When you start getting, 14. And then once again, broken record alert. It's the procedural things. It is, false starts. It is snapping the ball before guys get lined up. Last week you had a substitution infraction where you got 12 guys on the field. It is the things like that just destroy you as an offense. And let me take it a step further. If this was, I don't know, if this was like, help me think of a great offense. Like if this was the best offense in South Carolina football history and you lose 5 yards, they may just say, oh, well, 5 yards. We'll just add that right back by picking it up. When you're struggling to stop the run already, when you're struggling with negative plays, when you're struggling with protecting the passer already, take that 3-down sequence where you have those 3 downs to gain 10 yards, and now you add 5 to it. It changes everything, man. Like it is a killer when you do that if you are struggling with the things South Carolina is struggling with. And I don't know why it is. I know people are going to say, well, why is it happening? I do not know why it is, but nobody here, maybe you can, Chris, maybe you can tell us how to fix it. I don't know that anybody can tell us how to fix it, but I can tell you that if I had to write this is the single biggest problem, it's got to start with that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think you can chalk up the penalties, the procedural stuff to just decision making, right? Prepare, like South Carolina lined up offsides again, and we were talking about it this morning. Like that's an easy one. Make sure that you're not lined up offsides. Like that's less understandable than even a false start. South Carolina has had more false starts than I can remember seeing on a center. Not just they've had snap infractions, but just literal false starts on a center where you're moving before the ball is snapped or, whatever it may be. These are issues that are correctable, and they're the most frustrating, right? Yes, it's very frustrating when you're watching a game and you miss a block, you drop a pass, you have a ball overthrown, you miss a tackle. Those are incredibly frustrating. We saw all those things in this game, but the procedural stuff is what you, I think, have to start with, and then some of the decision-making throughout the course of a game, not finishing on a tackle, just kind of quitting sounds extreme, but stopping on a play before the play's over, not throwing a ball away, you just see all these different things throughout the course of a game. And I feel like, Wes, I'm very, very quickly going to get into ramble mode here because there's just so much to unpack. I think, look, you and I both picked a Missouri win. I picked, I think, 27-20. And I say that to illustrate that in my expectations sometime, 2022, I picked Tennessee to beat South Carolina. The Gamecocks win 63-30. Like, my score predictions, I don't know if I've ever nailed a score prediction. Maybe at some point, right? But my expectation going into this game was from Missouri to win largely because of some of the issues we've seen from South Carolina in the first 3 games. And so that if a game plays out like you expect and the other team wins, there are obviously going to be a lot of negative things to talk about after the game because you didn't win, right? There aren't many losses where you walk away from it kind of golf clapping. If you lose a game on the road or lose a game in general, there are going to be a lot of things to point to that are problems. I think there are a couple other underlying issues here, though, in that the issues that we saw from the first 3 games were not only still there, they were amplified in this game. That despite playing pretty poorly in many facets of the game, you still had a chance to win this game in the fourth quarter late. Multiple chances, in fact, not just, there was one window and they missed it. They had multiple chances to win the game. Couldn't. And a lot of those self-inflicted issues were a big reason for that, right? I think that's what's so tough about losing this game. Again, when you lose, there are going to be negatives to talk about. But the fact that not only did you not improve in the very first area, which is the self-inflicted stuff, that's frankly what lost you this game. We could still be talking about Missouri running for 250 plus yards. We could still be talking about missed tackles. We could still be talking about some level of penalties. We could still be talking about pass protection. And South Carolina could have won this game if not for those. And again, when you're having this many struggles across the board as a team, it's not just one of those things. We're not sitting here identifying and talking about just one micro aspect of, hey, if they could just fix the run game, this team could go to the next level. Hey, if they could just clean up this or clean up that. It's so many different things with this team, and that's what makes it, I think, incredibly frustrating. What's the answer? I don't know. Shane Beamer said after the game, I think this was on, so he talked right after the game on Saturday, then he talked on Sunday during the teleconference. And he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Now, when he was talking about that, to put it in context, he was not talking about staff changes or anything like that, to my knowledge. He was talking about it in the context of penalties and self-inflicted problems. How do you fix that? I don't know. They work on it in practice. They, quote unquote, emphasize it in practice. But he admitted clearly, this was Sunday night, clearly whatever they're doing is not resonating. So you have to go back and take a look. He said at everything. And in everything, he said scheme, personnel, all of it. And can you get it fixed? Can you get it fixed quickly? That was the question going into the Missouri game, Wes. And not only did it not get fixed, I think there's a great argument that those things got worse in the Missouri game. And that's why they walked out with a loss.
Yeah. And like we said, man, the game was there to be won. And you had all those issues. And then on top of it, missed opportunities too, man. I think layer that onto everything we just talked about, and then add in the missed opportunities just within the course of the game, where you're going, you almost knew it at the time, like, hey, if South Carolina loses this game, I will remember that play as a big reason why. And there were several of those for Carolina in this game. And let's start. I guess we already started, but let's move to let's try to tie in the run game on both sides, the run game for Missouri and the run game for South Carolina, and then how you kind of compare those two, which is an ugly thing to do, I think, right now. But so here's the thing, man. Sometimes when you have a sort of not great rushing day, and you go back and you look at the stats and you go, well, let's account for the sacks. Let's factor in some other things, and you go, look, hey, this was not good enough, but it's not really what that number, what that number is. And I'm not going to do that here. Like it was not the way you get to a negative number is because college football, for whatever reason, does account for sacks in the run game. But dude, there was just no room to operate in the first place. And PFF, so for those who are wondering, PFF has it as 17 carries for 37 yards, 2.2 yards per attempt. That's when you take out the sacks and just say actual runs. This is what you did. What is I think scary, man, a little bit is that there was not a run over 10 yards in this game for South Carolina. I think the long was 7, maybe. We're going to talk about missed tackles on the South Carolina defensive side, and of course the context of tackling Ahmad Hardy. There was one forced missed tackle from all the runners that South Carolina had. So that would be 3 running backs, your quarterback, and then 1 rush for Brian Rowe, I believe would probably be the extent of it. And you force 1 missed tackle. Now, I fully realize it's easier to force a missed tackle when you have some actual room to operate as opposed to just being swarmed, right? So it's not, I don't think it's completely fair to say, hey, well, there was no room to run, but also this is this huge issue. They're not making anybody miss. Is that part of it too? I think you could have to say yes. Like at some point you need to make create some missed tackles too in terms of your ball carriers, right? But I do gotta imagine it is tough to do that if you're getting hit in the backfield. And look at one side, man. Ahmad Hardy, best tackle breaker in the country right now, statistically. You knew he was going to be tough to tackle. But 138 yards rushing is what PFF credited him with. I know it's sometimes a little bit off from the official numbers. They said 138 yards rushing, 118 after contact. So just about your entire day was after contact. And then again, South Carolina, 37 yards on 17 carries with 1 forced missed tackle, as we talked about, on the site, 16 missed tackles, according to PFF, for the South Carolina defense. So just the balance of those two things compared to one another really just tells a story that you didn't even have to watch the game. If you just tell somebody that, you're like, man, it would be very difficult to win a football game knowing those statistics.
Well, and you dive in more. So again, using PFF as kind of a guide. So Matt Fuller, 7 yards on 2 carries. Yards after contact, 8. Yards after contact number being higher than his actual rushing total, right? Oscar Attaway, 7 yards, 1 after contact. Rasul Faison, 6 yards. I'm sorry, 5 yards on 6 attempts, 6 yards after contact, right? Like ugly figures. And then the rushing totals in general, Wes, are just low. I think 11 carries for running backs for about 19 yards. So you're not even at 2 yards a carry with that metric. And you're playing, what did South Carolina play? 55 snaps the other night. So that illustrates a bigger problem in that we pointed out before this game, South Carolina's been too feast or famine offensively. That was to the extreme in this game. If you look at the entire offense, they hit some big passing plays. Eli Drinkwitz was ticked off after the game. Y'all saw what he said. When we look back at the tape, I'm going to be chewing out some secondary coaches. They couldn't guard South Carolina defensively in the passing game. Lenor Sellers, as bad as this game was on offense, had over 300 passing yards, threw some beautiful balls down the field. They schemed up some great plays. And despite Lenor Sellers being under fire over 50% of the time, they were able to make some things happen, even when he was under pressure or when they happened to get a clean pocket for him. He was able to deliver. But what was the problem? Feast or famine, right? You would have some touchdowns, some decent drives, or you're going 3 and out, you're going backwards. You look at the run game, Wes, it would be one thing if South Carolina had, kind of similar to the passing game, some chunk runs, a long touchdown run, a few chunk runs of 20 or 30 yards. But they didn't get that like they got in the passing game. And again, this is why I had a few keys going into this game. One of them was, given what we saw from South Carolina through the first 3 games, I was not very confident that they could just go up and down the field with sustained drives, that they were going to need some chunk plays. They got that only in the passing game, and it didn't end up being enough because the run game was so bad, and they had so many negative plays, and so many times were behind the sticks because of penalties, self-inflicted mistakes, and again, not being able to run the football, that ended up causing a huge issue. Another key, of course, was, I said stop the run. I should have said slow it down. I think we all thought Ahmad Hardy, as good as he is, he's going to get his. Missouri schematically, they're going to get theirs. This has been a hard matchup for South Carolina. They didn't slow down Missouri enough, right? They got a pick, which ended up being big. They got off the field enough to where, again, despite how this game went, the offense did get the ball back with 5 minutes left in the game with a chance to go down and put together a drive and go ahead. I think they gained 1 yard on the drive. Not to absolve the defense. They were quite poor in many aspects of this game, particularly against the run in the second half. But Roberts got going. Hardy got going. Bo Pribula, we were all wondering, are they going to break out the quarterback run more in this game? They did. He hurt them at times with some designed runs or just being able to escape. And the result is what we saw. South Carolina didn't adequately slow that down. They made it worse. You know, you can't help Missouri in the run game by missing as many tackles. Miss a tackle in the box, okay. But I think a lot of times what we saw was missing tackles in space, getting additional yardage. The touchdown run that Hardy had, he's past you. You've got a chance. You got to finish that play. They don't finish it. Hardy finishes it in the end zone, right? So I feel like I'm rambling again, Wes, but just so many issues in this game, and certainly not being able to slow them down adequately in the run game and not tackling well was big. 16 missed tackles for Carolina, I think, in this game.
Yeah, and honestly, man, that 16 number, again, we're going off PFF. I don't know what the internal number is. Typically, I do feel like now PFF grades are sometimes a joke, but I do feel like in general, the numbers like that typically are pretty close. When I have had both numbers, and I think, Chris, here's the thing: like they were credited for no missed tackles on Pribula. Like he had no sort of creative missed tackles, but you watch the game and I don't know, maybe he's not running through a tackle, but I mean, I felt like there were times where you had an opportunity to get him on the ground and he kind of runs away from you. He makes a move. Maybe you're not quite close enough that it registers as that missed tackle metric, but I would say some missed opportunities to go hit him. And, so that was the thing. How many missed chances were there in this game defensively that didn't even register as a missed tackle, but they're going to look back on, or they already have looked back on, I'm sure, on film and said, hey, that missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And, the defense did their one saving grace in this game, Chris, was that they did force some field goals. And, they did actually force a turnover. You have Gerald Kilgore, his first career interception. Like you said, they got the offense the ball back and gave them that second opportunity to go win the game. So if the offense drives down and wins it there, you're going, hey, the defense played pretty bad, but they went out when it really mattered. They got you the ball. They got you a chance. You had 2 shots at this thing on offense because you had the ensuing drive after Missouri went up, 3 and out. And you're going, well, you're about to get outside zone like crazy. They get a stop. Slight adjustment at that point, by the way. They put an extra defender in the front 7 on both of those final drives. They basically had like a 3-4 look, depending on how you would count Stewart and BT. And Stewart wasn't even in there for part of one of those drives, I think. It was like a 5-2 or 3-4 look. They went super heavy. And anyway, they got a couple stops. They even got a stop at the end, but the Missouri guy drills the field goal. And so, I mean, there was, I was about to say, it wasn't all bad on defense. There was quite a bit of bad. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
But once again, kind of that thing where there was just enough for them to have a chance to go win the game. But you just didn't play enough really good complementary football to go actually win it. Beamer, was frustrated with special teams too, guys. I mean, I don't think you look at special teams necessarily after that game and think, well, hey, they were the problem, just from a, hey, I just watched the game standpoint. But when they're watching it back on film, they're going, hey, we're a block away from a kickoff return for touchdown potentially. Harbor's going to get one of those eventually, I think. I noticed a slight shift there too. Do you wonder, after he had that long return on taking it 9 yards deep last week, if they were like, hey, we're just going to let him start returning these?
Yeah, I think so.
So they look at film, they go, wow, we're a block or two away on this. You don't necessarily see that on the TV copy. They say, well, we ran into the punter, which almost was a catastrophe of a penalty. They're going, we should have blocked the punt, would have changed the game. And they're going Bakari Swain, once again, who's shown you how dangerous he is as a punt returner. The double team, the guy that gets double teamed makes the tackle. So from a film review standpoint, they're going, we were not happy at all with special teams. So all three phases, like you want a complete win where all three phases contribute. This is a complete loss. All three phases had a hand in the loss, unfortunately. And I do, before we move on, because I'm going to forget, I want to throw a little star for William Joyce, who, has hit some kicks and in fairly pressure-packed situations. So William Joyce, lots of pressure on him. We all know there was a question mark at that position, a big battle to win that position. He's hit some kicks. I know he's got one miss this year, but good game for him on Saturday, at least giving them a chance to go win the game. I want to have the Lenor Sellers conversation, because I think, Chris, that it is it's nuanced. I really do. And I want to have that conversation here in a second. But first, do you want to tell everybody about one of our great sponsors?
Yeah, let's tell the folks about our friends over at Palmetto Golfing. That is, of course, Brandon Cohn, big South Carolina guy, longtime Gamecock Central member. Palmetto Golfing belts at palmettogolfing.com. If you're a golfer, got to check it out. People on the Insiders Forum, our members who are golfers, are absolutely loving the products. Custom golf gloves, custom golf towels, and custom golf tees. He's got the cross design, the Palmetto Tree and Moon, the South Carolina blue color, the University of South Carolina themed garnet color, cross design, and one of the coolest products, I think, custom needlepoint belts. If you're a fan of needlepoint belts, they can get pretty pricey. Brandon's are extremely well made and more affordable than a lot of the other options you're going to find online. So go check them out, palmettogolfing.com. See if you find something that you like. I bet you will. If you're not a golfer, get something for that golfer in your life, or check out one of the custom needlepoint belts. Support those that support us. Palmetto Golfing Belts, Brandon Cohn's online shop at palmettogolfing.com.
And also, Chris, our friends at Game Time. Much like college football being back, our friends at Game Time are back with us here on GC Live. Shout out to them. My favorite ticketing app if I want to go to a game or concert. I've told y'all many times before, use the Game Time app to go to the World Series several years ago. Braves not looking like a World Series team right now, so I'm glad I got to experience that when that opportunity came. And I know it can be frustrating to go buy tickets, but from a general standpoint, but this app is outstanding because all the little features they have built into it. If you go to gametime.co or download Game Time on the App Store, you can see it for yourself. One of the best parts about it, man, is that fees are included. You will know your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I know we all hate when you go to checkout and there's all these extra charges there. You're going to know exactly what you're going to pay up front. And then once you pay it, you got the lowest price guarantee. Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference if you go out there and you find the same ticket in the same section for a cheaper price elsewhere. Again, that's 110% of the difference. Very cool guarantee there if you use Game Time to buy tickets. So if you want to go to the next South Carolina home game, that's this weekend. Kentucky, maybe a chance to get that first SEC win for the Gamecocks. They are favored in this one. Take the guesswork out of buying those tickets and download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use our code ON3 where you're going to get $20 off your first purchase, but terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code ON3 for $20 off. Again, shout out to our friends at Game Time for being a sponsor here on GC Live and a sponsor for several other shows throughout the ON3 network. Love all our sponsors, man. They make the show possible here on GC Live, and they keep this portion free. Obviously, we want you to subscribe to Gamecock Central, but those sponsors keep this show free for all. All right, man, let's have the Lenor Sellers conversation. I think you have to start the conversation by saying South Carolina is not in this football game without the play of Lenor Sellers. He made some plays, he made some throws in this game that when the scout for an NFL team goes to their boss and says, we need to draft Lenor Sellers, and he has a 30-second window of clips that he wants to convince his boss why he should draft Lenor Sellers, there's maybe 3 plays from this game on there. One of them being after and we'll get to the first and goal from the 2 here in a moment, but the throw on the 3rd down on that same sequence where he is rolling to the left against his body, throws a seed to Nick Harbor to basically save the opportunity there to get 3 points. The throw down the field on the touchdown to Dre Jacobs. There are a few other plays where you're just going, like he has it. Like he has
the Jared Brown throw. The Jared Brown
drop it in a bucket, right?
Yeah.
You're going that, like, when people that say this guy can't throw the football, it's mostly a Clemson thing.
Just call it for what it is. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's terrible. Watch him play. He can throw the football. Now, I imagine the frustrating thing for Lenor is that there are about a handful of plays that he wants back. And, but I think we can say 2 things at once here. If I got 5 plays and I say, hey, he wants all these back, if I could just wave a wand and give him one of them back, South Carolina might win the game. Another frustrating part. And it is not fair to ask Lenor Sellers to be perfect. It's not. Nobody is perfect. It is not fair to ask him to be perfect. And the fact that he threw for 300 yards, the fact that he did what he did, where he was getting pressured, and y'all have heard me at times say, hey, guys, pass protection was not as bad as you think. You've heard me say that. I'm not going to say that here. He's getting pressured over 50% of the time. The fact he did what he did with no running game and being pressured as much as he was, he gave you a chance to win. If he does not play as well as he did, you get blown out. Now, we can equally say if he can get one of those, if he can get a throwaway back, if he can get the throw to Mazeo Bennett back, if he can get the throw down the middle where he did have an open guy on one of those 2 final drives in the 4th quarter, that's a throw he makes, man.
Yeah.
Most of the time he makes that throw. If we can give him one of those plays back, maybe South Carolina does win the game. The throwaway on the 1st and goal. I also feel like, and this has been such a weird conversation, I feel like, especially the way Beamer reacted to it in the press conference this past week, for whatever the reason may be, he has not been able to get going in the running game. And they had a few calls, but he just did not look as comfortable in the running game. And I have to think at least some of that this week, Chris, is one of those things that coaches are never going to admit because it's a gamesmanship thing, and you don't want opponents keying in on this, but everybody knows the kid missed most of the game last week because he got hit and got hit high. I'm going to chalk a little bit of that this week up to coming off the injury. It reminded me a little bit of the Ole Miss game last year in that he was out there, he was making some plays, but he just did not quite look like himself in the run game. And so I want to acknowledge that part. And then in terms of, I'm going to just kind of leave it there that it just did not quite look like himself. And I think, Chris, when the offense really got going last year, they had that aspect from him. And it wasn't always necessarily you got to run for, 1,000,000 yards like he did on Clemson, but there was a lot of like, hey, he ran for 50 yards today. He ran for 70 yards today. That gave you a lot of explosion in the running game that otherwise may not have been there. And so, yeah, I think it's a nuanced conversation, man. I think he gave them a chance to win. And even rewatching the game, I actually had a little bit more of an appreciation of the game he played on Saturday night, considering everything he dealt with. But then I also think it's probably one of those games where he laid his head down after the game. He was replaying in his head. He probably said, man, I just want one of those back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you could really pick out several of those, Wes, but I mean, I think the first and goal from the 2 one is probably the one that really stings. And you could tell by his reaction afterwards. And I've seen somebody on the Insiders Forum, one of our members, made a great point, and then they said that play was kind of a microcosm of the rest of the game in some ways. And they started with the play call. And I want to say something after this briefly about play calling too. To me, Wes, was I saying line up and run the football? Shane Beamer said after the game that I might have gone for it there given where we were in the situation. Really, you're thinking about it as you have 3 or 4 downs to score a touchdown from the 2. Given how the rest of the game played out and South Carolina's inability to run the ball really this entire season so far, a third of the way through the season, I'm not convinced that running the ball was the best move there, maybe, and Mike Shula might be thinking the same. So you're thinking first down, Missouri's aggressive. They're coming downhill, which they were on that play too. Let's see if we can pop a play action pass. Sellers has had some success in that regard this season. I think the play call is about the last thing you worry about there, given everything. If it hits, it's a good play call, right? If you throw it away, you may say, I didn't like the play call, but it's not a disastrous result. You have a play action pass. You miss a block in the backfield. Okay. Those 2 things are still fine, but then you did what you can't do. You hold on to the ball, you get sacked. Now you're in a terrible position, right? Instead of having second and goal from the 2 and 2 or 3 more downs to go for this thing, you end up having to settle for a field goal. Play calling generally, Wes, and we'll get back on Sellers, but real quick. South Carolina dialed up some good stuff in the passing game. And you may look back and you may say, well, the defense just busted the coverage. If you call a play where the defense busts the coverage, that's the point. You can't do any better than that. They dialed up some things in the passing game to the extent where Wes, on a couple of those plays, they actually had good protection. Faison missed that block on the first and goal play that we were just talking about. He had a key block on one of the long passing plays. Brady Hunt had a key block, and the O-line held up. Far too often, none of those things did hold up, whether it's perimeter blocking in the run game, which Beamer lamented after the game, or whether it was in the box with tight ends, backs, and the offensive line. Far too often, you laid it out earlier, there was too much pressure. And that, again, makes it all the more frustrating because you see when South Carolina gets protection, they've often been able to have some success in the passing game. It kind of makes you wonder what could be or what could have been had the protection been better at times. But again, just feast or famine. A lot of, some really good in the game, 300 passing yards, some explosive plays, a lot of bad, a lot that you would want back. I have had a hard time too with the Sellers in the run game stuff. I wrote something going into this game that compared last year and compared this year. We had such a small sample size that I don't think we could even fairly talk about Sellers' usage this year. Can we talk about it more now? I think so. But I go back to what you said. He's coming off an injury. He did take a big hit in this game, got up right before the half, got up smiling, right? But it does look different. Looks a little different. The scrambles, one of the scrambles, he didn't really have much of anywhere to go. He had 2 or 3 guys waiting on him from Missouri. Does he look a little more tentative? Well, in this game, I thought so. Are they designing a lot of runs for him? No, I think there were only 2 designed runs and then some zone read stuff where he kept one of them. Not a ton of design runs, not a lot of scrambling. Why? I think there are probably many reasons for that. But I do think when 16's got the ball in his hands and he's playing well, that's your best offense so far. Are they overly relying on him? Yes. Would you rather it not be that way? No. But the best teams that have quarterbacks like him tend to rely on those quarterbacks because they're really good. How can you get him to not be leaving a game saying, God, there's a handful of plays that you know you would like to have back? And that is one of just many things that this team has to solve.
Yeah, I actually did not hate the play call at all on the 1st and goal from the 2. I know a lot of people have verbalized that they disagree with that. I mean, that's just a typical, when a play goes bad, you know, why are you throwing the ball there? If South Carolina gets stuffed on a few plays in a row, you're going to have to throw it anyway. I'd just rather throw it when they think I'm running, you know. And a lot, I don't have the PFF in front of me. I might be able to pull it real quick. A lot of his big plays this year have come off of play action, and several of his best plays on Saturday came off of play action. So I really, it's one of those things, man. Running the ball there, if you really feel convicted that I should throw it, is just playing scared. I think. Like I think some level of aggression in a game like this is to be applauded, and it does not, just because the play blew up does not mean it was a terrible play call. And there's guys open. There's an opportunity for you to get the ball out, and I don't hate the call. Like, there's some calls I hated. What did I say? The fourth and 1 that got blown up against Vanderbilt, where they just tried some type of power with pulling offensive linemen and a guy shoots the gap. Hated that call. I don't have a problem saying I hate a particular call. This one was not one of them for me. I think the play is there. Just was not executed. And I think there was a very small chance if you just run the ball there that you're getting in from everything I saw, man, because they are coming down the hill on you, you know? And so, yeah, that's where you are right now with offensive line play. And we've defended it, I think, fairly at times. Like, hey, let's look at this for what it is. But Saturday, it really just truly was not good enough. And the Missouri front, those guys are good too, man. Like, there is some credit to be had here for them. There's some credit to be had here for Ahmad Hardy on in terms of creating those missed tackles. So give Missouri some credit, but also I think there's some looking in the mirror. It's like, just you knew a lot of these things, right? Like, you knew a lot of these things coming in. So you would hope you could do a little bit more about it. I thought Beamer, or maybe it was even the question on one of the press conferences, the perimeter blocking being brought up. I thought that was pretty, just left a lot to be desired too. Like, the throws to the outside, you say, well, hey, run game's not here. Let's try to just spit the ball out, little receiver screens. Let's try to get the ball out to Brian Rowe on the perimeter. Let's try to mix this up a little bit. And that stuff just was not there either, you know? So I don't know. But here's the thing, man. Are they doing too much on offense? Like what is what is the answer? Like, I can't believe that it's just that the offensive linemen individually are not capable. Like, it just makes you wonder, like, I know the answer feels like it's always, hey, let's simplify. But to an extent, like, are they just not comfortable with what they're being asked to do in terms of the blocking schemes? Like, and I'm just talking out loud. I'm thinking out loud here, man. But I know somebody said earlier, hey, why can't we just run what Missouri runs? Well, for one, it's not that simple. Like, they live this stuff, right? Like, they live in outside zone. It is their entire identity. You can't just in 1 week say, we're going to be an outside zone team.
Yeah.
Outside zone is what they do. But is there something to be said for the fact that they have something that they just do and they do very, very well? And they don't stick to it. Like, they will mix in other looks as well. They will run complementary plays off of that. But just the concept of, hey, they know what they are up front and they go do it. There is something to be said for that part. And I don't know. I'm just.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I think the reason we can't come up with an answer is because there's so many problems that you can't really narrow it down. And that's why, I mean, you do, if you're Shane Beamer, you have to take a hard look at it, and you're in a tough position, because if you're in an off season, so say after the 2023 season, if you're Shane Beamer, you can look at the entire operation from top to bottom with what you're doing, and you can try to make a determination of where you need to go, and you have a whole off season to do that. You can revisit, what are we doing in strength and conditioning? What are we doing schematically? What are we doing in terms of practice structure? What are we doing on game days? Like, you can revisit all that. You're trying to do that right now, Wes, while getting ready to play a game on Saturday. You have Sunday practice, which is lighter after a game. You're off on Monday, your NCAA mandated off day. Then you're practicing the rest of the week, and you're playing on Saturday. And so you're going in there tomorrow working on Kentucky, but you're also in a position that you don't want to be in, where you're having to work on yourself a lot. You're having to do a lot more self-scout than you want, because you're trying to find some answers, of how to stop going backwards so much, how to make better decisions, how to stop committing so many penalties. And then you're looking at that. That's one thing, right? Then you're looking at, what are we doing in the run game? Because the passing game, as feast or famine as it's been, you've had enough good moments there to where you're not coming out of the Missouri game going, the passing game's a huge problem. What you are saying is the run game is a huge problem. And so what is the answer there? I'm with you, Wes. We all, I mean, maybe not all, some people were not on this train at all. I thought the offensive line had a chance to be better this year. Not dominant, not great, not even really good, better, because they seemed on paper to have more competitive depth. They certainly had more experience in some areas, and nobody can say that they've been better. So why is that? Is simplification the answer in the run game? I mean, maybe in some instances, but in other instances, South Carolina's lined up and just run something that you should be able to base out of and major in, and they haven't been able to do it. This despite having 16 as a mobile quarterback, more than mobile quarterback, and a group of running backs that seem capable to me. I mean, Rasul Faison rushed for 1,100 yards last year. Yes, it was at Utah State, but like, he's capable, and we've seen flashes when he has space. Why can they not generate any space? Again, all valid questions, not one that I have an immediate answer to.
Yeah, man. You know what? You know what's crazy about that game, among many things. So I was kind of shocked to see this number, but if you think of all the big plays Carolina had in the passing game, it does make sense. Yards per play in this game, almost identical 5.9 yards per play on offense for South Carolina, 6.1 for Missouri. And for those who, maybe that's not a stat you ever pay attention to. And so I went to try to find some context, like in SEC versus SEC games last year. If you just average that for the entire year, where would that put you? And 5.9 yards per play, SEC versus SEC, over the course of all of last season would have put you basically tied for like fifth in the conference among 16 teams. So, for an offense that a lot of people say is just genuinely awful, you're like, okay, that's a pretty good number. Now, the 6.1, if you average that throughout the course of all SEC games, which is what Missouri had, you would have been, I think it was like top 2 in the SEC last year. My point I'm getting at, the numbers, very, very similar. The difference in being able to run the football and have that consistency as opposed to it being boom or bust, where I'm either getting a 43-yard gain or a minus 13-yard gain, and then those things all somehow even out to being almost the same number, whereas Missouri is getting their negative plays are their hey, we didn't block that up. It's a 2-yard gain. It's a two. Now we got a 10, a 15, a 10, a 15. The difference in those two things is kind of the difference in running 55 plays or 50 plays, whatever it was for South Carolina on offense, versus a bunch of plays on offense for Missouri. It's the difference in being on the field and not being on the field. It's the difference in being great on third down, which Missouri was, much like Vanderbilt last week, and being poor on third down. So that you can get to that number a lot of different ways. And coaches love explosive plays, right? If you have an explosive on a drive, your chances of scoring on that drive go up immensely. But you just can't be entirely reliant on that. There has to be, and there you may even give up a little bit of that explosiveness in terms of, you may give up a little bit of explosiveness in order to get more efficient. And it's kind of a sliding scale almost. But the scale is way too much over here right now. Now, the problem is you have a quarterback who can go create those explosive plays for you, but you have not had the O-line and the rushing attack to balance that out. Is I think why those numbers are what they are in reality.
Yeah, I mean, and it prevents you, the current iteration of what's going on prevents you from, to go back to your point, playing complementary football, and there's so many instances of that from the other night. I mean, the first one you can look at is South Carolina ran 55 plays. You want that number to be higher. Now, if you, again, could have won the game if you finish off a couple more of those potential explosive plays that you didn't hit, or if you just don't make a mistake and go backwards in the red zone and have to settle for a field goal. That was set up, though, by an explosive play. But that's not an area you want to major in or live in, is being, again, explosive plays are great. This team has been too reliant on them. Feast or famine, boom or bust, like whatever cliche you want to use. And even, I mean, Wes, defensively, right? There's been some feast or famine aspects there where you actually get what you want to a degree, because South Carolina, look, here's an illustration. 7-play, 37-yard drive. You take some time. You get some yards. It's better than your first drive, which was 4 plays, 9 yards, and a punt. You still have to punt the ball, but what's the result? You punt it to the 1-yard line. Great punt. Great play by Gerald Kilgore to get down there and down it on the 1. What happens next? 99-yard touchdown drive by Missouri. Now, did the refs miss a hold on Gabe Brownlow-Dendy? Absolutely. In fact, they called a hold on South Carolina's defense on that play. Can't worry about that. You had plenty of opportunities on that drive. First down, you did well. Second down, you gave up an 8-yard pass, gave up a scramble. It's not like they're in the red zone at that point. You got to go force a punt and get them off the field. Not playing complimentary football. That's going to happen sometimes. But the point is, when you start diving into this thing, if it's not one thing, it's another, and there's just been so many mistakes, procedural stuff, just really killing this team right now. But I think offensively is where the biggest part of every phase has some level of issues. Defensively, there are tons of issues, but offensively, their inability to run the ball, the boom or bust elements of this offense, 55 plays the other night, it's really, really hard to win that way and to rely on winning that way.
Yep, no doubt, man. Hey, let's close this out. Our guy, Chris Lowe, just completely ruining the SEC Network's special that could have been an email by going ahead and putting out the permanent opponents for the SEC. And Chris, are you at all surprised? What do you think of the fact that the Gamecocks, and again, they're calling these annual opponents, not permanent opponents, because it's going to be reviewed fairly soon.
Every 4 years.
Yeah. Florida, Georgia, Kentucky for South Carolina. So you get a couple of your traditional opponents you were used to playing every single year back on the schedule for a little bit. What do you think, though, in terms of like competitive balance and what it means for the schedule?
I think so, Wes, it's hard to keep up nowadays because there have been so many different iterations of this may change, this may change. I do remember that before the SEC nailed down either the first or the second of the temporary model that they had, basically, we got to figure out what is our model going to be. And they've landed on what we've had for the past, 2 years, and knowing that they were going to have to transition to something else. At that time, remember, there was talk about the 3 permanent opponents. Don't hold me to this, but I want to say what was going around at that time was Florida, Kentucky, and I feel like Tennessee, which also would have made sense because you're getting that SEC East flavor. You're getting the teams that you were, more accustomed to. I did hear in recent days, as the conversation has been renewed around the 3 permanent opponents, that both Georgia and South Carolina really wanted that game. And the SEC tried to protect some rivalries. They tried to make it make sense. I mean, look at who we're talking about, the Missouri game. Missouri's playing Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma, right? So you got kind of that Big 12 Midwest like flavor in there. So I think this makes a lot of sense. People miss playing Florida, Tennessee, Georgia every year. Of course, Tennessee is not on this list. Maybe they are in the future. But Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, I think makes a lot of sense. Competitive balance-wise, I think it also makes sense. Georgia obviously has continued to be a monster every year. Florida's down right now. Kentucky's down right now. But we've seen Florida, be really good in the past. We've seen Kentucky. Kentucky's been better than they have been lately. They went on a stretch where they not just gave South Carolina fits, but won a lot of those games. So I think it makes sense when you look at the list here.
Florida, not like when you see Florida, you think Florida. Then you're like, much like we talked about, like, hey, this wasn't your grandpa's Vanderbilt. This ain't your grandpa's Florida either, but in the opposite direction.
The opposite way, yeah.
I've missed those games. I really have, man. It's been weird. And I'm not saying you had to have Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia on the schedule every single year, but having none of the 3 the last couple of years, yet you're playing Texas A&M, you're playing Missouri. I mean, that I don't know. It's just been off. Not that the SEC cares at all about what South Carolina fans think, but I think a lot of South Carolina fans probably felt the same way, that this was just something missing. You kind of, those are oftentimes memorable games when you play those teams, especially if you get big wins. So, all right, y'all, we're at the hour mark. We're going to get out of here. I'm sure we missed something, but out of time. We'll continue to break it down throughout the week on GamecockCentral.com. Real quick, I thought a really good game for Vandrevius Jacobs. I thought we saw some things from Brian Rowe in the passing game. Beamer gave credit to Cisse on defense, but I also thought Gerald Kilgore had some good things, man. Okoronkwo had a play or two here or there that were good. So those were some guys that just kind of stood out to me in the game for South Carolina. The younger receivers, and particularly Vandrevius, man, he could have let it go the other way when all these other freshmen started coming in and they were getting all this hype. He could have kind of went into a shell, and it sounds like he has kept pushing. So good for him, man. He's had a good couple of weeks and a good start to the season, and is right now South Carolina's leading receiver. So couple of bright spots in what was an otherwise just a tough day for the Gamecocks. So, all right, y'all, thank you for tuning in. He is Chris. I am Wes. Appreciate the support as always, and appreciate all of our great sponsors here on GC Live, and we'll talk to you.